And that's pretty much my naval and war experience. I mean, you could go on and on and on, but that would just be superfluous. I ready to get out of the Navy now. It's 1953, December the 8th, 1953. I was discharged from the Navy with an honorable discharge at Barracks 215. We always remember those numbers. Treasure Island, just outside of San Francisco. Treasure Island has now become one of those little residential areas, like it was a naval base and now it's industrial and now it became residential. Uh, this is 1953, and I got married also. I got married for the first time in 1952. We were all going to get married, and have a little white picket fence and that. And somehow the dream didn't work, and that'll be another part of the story. But I got married, and I got out of the Navy, and we were in Oakland, on Alcatraz in old Oakland, That's when I went back into being a DJ, because when you went to the employment office, they would ask, what is your civilian occupation? And I would put down radio announcer. I mean, that was a job code for a radio announcer. And I would put down radio announcer, hoping to get into one of the major radio stations, but realizing that that was not really going to happen. So I found out that you could broker your own time. Mm-hmm. So then that's when I went into radio, getting out of the Navy, 1953, 1950. I got out in December of 53. So then it was about 1954 when I started brokering my time in radio. That was the first place that I worked, was at KWBR. KWBR became later one of the major black radio stations bought by Warner Brothers. It was always owned by Warner Brothers. KWBR was Warner Brothers, and then it came KBLX. Mm-hmm. KBLX was a major black broadcasting station in the Bay Area for, quite a few years. My time when I went in, I purchased 15 minutes worth of airtime for $25 a week. And, you could sell it for as much as you wanted. You would have your Tipsy by Lloyd Glenn, by the way, was my opening theme, that record, and you could have your opening theme, which was like maybe, the records then were short, 225, 235. 3 minutes was a long record at that time. So you'd have maybe 215, 225 that you talk over, that's your theme, and then you play a song. Now you're up to about 5 minutes. You can do a commercial, and that commercial, say you got four guys, you charge them $10 a week, well, you made $15 on top of your 25. So that commercial would fit into that slot, right? So that's $10. Then you play another 2 minute song, and that's another $10. Another 2 minute song, a $10, and on your closing. So you squeeze all of this into 15 minutes, in between maybe three records, six or say eight, I'd say 8 minutes worth of music, and a good 4 minutes worth of talk, opening and closing. So, and it became quite popular. I was known as the Wild Child. Uh-huh. This was back in the day. Old Oakland, Lake Merritt was a beautiful area then. It was predominantly white and upper middle class, and the Buick dealership was there. Buick was one of the big lines back in the day. Buicks and Pontiacs, Chevrolets, Oldsmobiles. We even had Studebakers. Those were the cars. But that time, brokerage in this time put me back into the industry. The person that took my spot was Don Barksdale. Don Barksdale, they called him Big Don Barksdale, was a famous basketball player. He played with the other, I can't remember, the Celtics. He played with the Celtics, yeah. And he took my time, but that launched me into the industry. I worked at several stations during that time. KRE in Berkeley, which became, what is it? Oh, the other station. KBLX. KRE became KBLX. And of course, we all worked at KPFA, the Pacifica station. So that was Pacifica Broadcasting in Berkeley. So I did a lot of college radio during that time. Also during that time, I got into the system. It's funny now, but it wasn't funny then. You know, we talk about, I don't know a black man that ain't been arrested. Well, a lot of them haven't, but most of us my age and my generation, one way or another, we bumped into it. So whether it was big or little, we bumped into that system because it was against it. The system, there's no way we're going to not get in the system. You know, that's another story. Willie can tell you about that. He's into that side of it. But I was brokerage at the time at KWBR, this radio program, and Country Bumpkin just out of the Navy, 21 years old, into radio, head up in the clouds, on the air, you know. Well, here comes slick Mr. Cates. I forget his first name, but Cates came along, and he was from Chicago. And he goes, "Oh, let's start an advertising agency. I'll get clients for you, and I'll take a percentage of it." That was cool. And we'll call it MC Cates Advertising Agency, M&C Advertising Agency. Mason and Cates. Of course, Mason now is the first name there. I mean, I'm being set up and don't know it, right? So, okay, I'm happy, man, because we got this advertising agency, and I'm Mason, and he's bringing me the checks, and I'm signing the checks, you know. Well, this might sound strange, but knowing my background, I left home when I was like 15, 16. So I didn't really go through all the different courses in high school that the other people did. But when I got to where they were taking, check writing and all this type of thing, I was in the Navy. And in the Navy, I left in the 10th grade. My 10th grade, you had to have a 10th grade education to get into the Navy, because in the Army, they would take you without it, before you got a 10th grade. 9th grade, you get in the Army, because Navy was specialized. You had to have courses. So having this 10th grade education, being in the Navy, and coming out without having had all this stuff in check writing and all this stuff, I actually thought you wrote the check. It sounds stupid, but I did. And you put the money in the bank at the end of the week. Of course, nobody believed that. So, come to find out, I had my name on a lot of checks that were insufficient funds. Yeah. And I get arrested. Chase has took the money, and he's gone back to Chicago, okay? And here I am, 21, 22 years old, just out of the Navy, no kind of record at all. And no, of course, nobody believed you didn't know about it. So I get 1 to 14. Okay, well, 1 to 14 means 1 to 14 years in prison. Well, since I had a little better education and no record, instead of sending me to the prison with the classification center, I went to the prison farm, which was like an honor farm. And there you could do your minimum sentence a year and get out on probation, instead of doing like 5 or 6 years and getting out on parole. And that was because I had no prior record and military service and an honorable discharge and all of that stuff. So that's a story within itself, because it was a break, a real lucky break, because where the Santa Rita prison farm was an old Navy brig. Oh, okay. So instead of buildings and bars and all this stuff, it was barracks. Barrack A, in the middle, Barrack B, Barrack C. U-shape it, A, B, C. And it's just like being back in the Navy. I go, oh, this is great. No bars. We had this regular big old chain link fence like the Navy with the gates that swung open that you put a lock on it, Well, they didn't even bother to lock it, because at night, when you open the door, they had one of these big old red lights on it. And if you open the door, it go bap, bap, bap. So that was the alarm. Nobody's going to run off from this. But if you needed an emergency or something, then you open the door. And being there, I could type a little bit, so they put me in a detail office, but I didn't type that good and messed up too many detail sheets. Well, the detail office is where you assign the different work crews. We had the hog farm. We had the ones that did out in the field crews, field one, field two, field three. Well, field one was like be a tomato picking crew. Field two would be a sugar beet crew. Field three could be anything that had to do with gardening because Santa Rita Prison Farm was just that. It was the farm that supplied the food for San Quentin Prison. So things were self-sustaining. We didn't have the prison industries yet, so we would grow the meat, we would grow the pigs and the hogs, and they would send it to we would butcher it and send it to we would grow it, send it out to be butchered, and they would send it to San Quentin. So, and we would pick the tomatoes and things. With the prison farm had contracted with the farmers in the area that the prisoners would pick their crops for a certain percentage of the crops, and whatever they had worked out with this government. So during that time, since I couldn't type that good, they put me into the chaplain's office. Well, the chaplain's office where you didn't really have to type that good, but they had the paper. And the reason was because you had 8 pikers across, you were working with 1-inch columns, and my typing was sufficient to fit into a column because you had to space them out. In the old days, you could look at the paper and you see a word, maybe 2 or 3 spaces, another word. And then because we had to make it fit that column. So I learned how to do that. That's my first experience with newsprint. Okay, so and at that time, also since it was just a farm, they had a band room, man. They had instruments down there. And the prisoners would go down because a lot of them were coming off the streets, like they would come in for marijuana. If it was marijuana, they'd send you to the farm. If it was heroin, you go straight to the prison. But anyway, they would come into the farm, and since I was doing the little radio thing, I went down to the music room one day, and Sonny Simmons, I didn't know who he was, but Sonny Simmons was there, and Prince Larsher. They were musicians from Oakland. And everybody today was just starting. So that was a bass up against the wall. So I went over to the bass, and I just picked up the bass, and I was looking at it, and I was just looking at the bass. I was just thumbing on the bass. I didn't know what it was. So they go, okay, wait, that sounds good. Wait, here, look, let me show you something. So he goes, look, this is A D E, okay, D E F G. And when we say go to A, I want you to do this. This one, this one, this one. Okay, let's try that. Doom, 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 doom. That's what I want you to do. And then when I said D, I want you to go to this one and do this one, this one, this one, this one. And don't do that one at all. Just this one, this one, this one. And then A, go back to this one. And then that's the way I learned how to play upright bass. So I was playing, and when I first started, they said, you know what? If you're going to be wrong, be loud and wrong. They wanted to hear the boom, boom, boom. Because I was trying to be quiet to get it together. They go, you're going to be wrong, be loud and wrong. Well, during that time also, since it was a brig, we had movies on the weekend. It was a rehabilitation farm. It wasn't really a prison. It was a rehabilitation center. That's the band room, the instruments. So we had movies on the weekend, and the movies took place in what was on the base was the old auditorium. Basketball court, the stage where everybody gathered. So what we did on Saturdays was set up the chairs in there on the floors for the movies. And during that time, I said, oh man, we got a stage. And then, the auditorium lights, red lights, clay lights, blue lights, green lights, switchboard, everything is there. And it's just, I went over and flipped it and it worked. So I got the print shop to print me a sign that said, Jim Mason's Jazz a la carte. And we set it out on the big billboard, we set it out on the, on the edge of the precipice. And the prisoners started coming in because when we started setting up the chairs, we first started doing it, they heard us playing, so they just started coming in and listening to us anyway and started sitting in the chair. And I got the brilliant idea, okay, let's advertise this. And with the chaplain's office, I got the help of doing that. So on the weekends, I'm playing upright bass with Sonny Simmons and Prince Larsha and Santa Rita Prison Farm. Yeah, but it wasn't all peaches and cream. It wasn't bad. It's like I was saying, it was just like that. It was just really light. It was like that. In the evening, you could visit other barracks. You just had to be back at your barracks in time for count. So they got the correct count. Then you could go back out and go back and talk with your buddies and do whatever you wanted. And then the time for chow, you didn't have to march. If you missed chow, you missed chow. The chow line's there, man. You better make it. It wasn't, okay, the barracks one line up for chow. It wasn't like that. So what happened was, during this time, I also went out with the farm crews as a reporter for the paper, and I learned how to pick sugar beets. Sugar beets is a knife with a hook on it like that, like on the end, and you grab the handle here. So you got the knife in your hand with the hook. You grab the beet, you hold the beet, you chop the top off the beet. So you go grab, chop, grab. That's the way you pick sugar beets. So I learned how to do that. Also, tomatoes. We harvested tomatoes when that crop came in. And that's when I learned how, when you see the trucks going down the road with tomatoes on them, when you see them like this high and that long, 4 high, 8 deep, flatbeds, 2 double flatbeds, I learned that. And, to me, yes, I was in the prison farm, and I got out in my 10 months. Then you got 5 days off for good behavior, they called it. So I got off in my 10 months and 18 days. That's my experience in the system when I got out of the Navy, and my beginning days of radio all at the same time. So we can take a break here, because from there on, I just went into radio. I did a lot of radio, and radio eventually led me into the civil rights movement.